What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Ade and Gman. As always, bringing it to you every single week where we talk about the best sport in the world, the craziest sport in the world, the wackiest sport in the world, the wild, wild west of boxing, where quite a lot has happened since we last filmed last week. Before we get going, a couple of things I need you to do, a bit of housekeeping, they call this. I need you to subscribe to my football channel, Ade OLADIPO Talks Football, if you like your football or your soccer in America. For our American viewers, the link is in the description. And obviously, I'll be collabing with G-Man on this video as well. He's just gone past 29,000. The race to 30,000 is on. The link to his channel is in the description as well. All right, enough of the housekeeping. G-Man, how are you? How have you been the last 5 or 6 days? It's been crazy in boxing, hasn't it?
Do you know what, right? It's probably the craziest week I've seen in boxing that hasn't had a major fight attached to it. You know, like when you have one of those crazy weeks, you have like Usyk Fury with all, the anticipation of the fight, John Fury and his antics and stuff like that. Like, that's a crazy week. The last crescendo, fighters dropping out, the weigh-ins, this, that, and the other, Bacoli getting a flight to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, all that. Big fight weeks, loads of news, crazy. This probably been the craziest week where there's not been any major fight. It's just like every day something's breaking, and it's not small news either. It's big, like, what the hell news. So that has been crazy, but it's been good fun. It's got a lot of eyes on boxing.
I wonder if it was like this 20 years ago before social media took over. Like maybe boxing was always like this and we didn't know about it because ultimately it wasn't going to make the back pages of the papers and it wasn't big enough to make TV news. So sometimes I feel like, was it like this? Was it because, let's be honest, I mean, Don King was in charge. So it must have been kind of crazy, but it feels like this is as crazy as it's ever been. But I don't know if that's true. I just think that social media just has a way of blowing things up bigger than they really are.
No, this has been a big week. No, man, this has been a big week. Like, it's just been consistently big stuff, probably for the last fortnight. Like, it all started with Conor Benn going to Zuffa. Then we get, Oleksandr Usyk and all this. It's just been, man, it's been manic. It's been nonstop. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I'm loving it. I love the craziness. I'm a big kind of car crash TV type of guy. I just like the unpredictability, the madness. And for me, the more people are talking about boxing, the more eyes we're getting on the sport of boxing. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good. Look, on a personal note, it's great for our YouTube channels. Ultimately, look, we create content, we put content out. It's nice that when you put a video out and you think about a subject, and it's always good to see the video do good numbers. It's good for our subscriber base. So from a very selfish perspective, we want it to be crazy because it means we can create content. And I guess you guys watching this like your content as well, and you like a bit of crazy like we do. All right, let's talk about crazy. Oleksandr Usyk versus the kickboxer Rico Verhoeven. A fight that's going to take place for the WBC heavyweight title, and it will land in Egypt. Now, to my knowledge, and I've been watching the sport for well over 30 years now, I can't ever remember a fight in Egypt, let alone a heavyweight title fight.
I couldn't tell you, man. I couldn't tell you the shock on my face when I saw this news break. Egypt, of all places, like flipping Egypt outside the pyramids. Have Turkey learned nothing from the Times Square show? I get it. It's nice. You can see all these arenas. You can see all these venues and stuff that and the other. It's different, right? But Egypt, really? Of all places? All right. In terms of this fight, look, we've heard this fight was teased. We've heard about it. We heard rumors about it. Oleksandr Usyk kind of hinted at it a few times. So we knew this fight was coming. But for me, it's still, it's a world title fight. I can't get my head wrapped around that.
A couple of things here. I'm not mad at it going to Egypt. I've never been mad at boxing going to places it's never been before. I'm not mad at that at all. I do actually think it will be easier to put on an event there than it was in Times Square, which obviously, as you correctly said, didn't end well, didn't look great. The mock-ups made it seem as though it was going to be something spectacular. And then when we saw it, it was a damp squid that would be deleted from everyone's brains as soon as it happened. My anger, and I think this is shared by everyone, is that the WBC have decided to make this a heavyweight title fight. And look, we'll get to the matchup itself. I know that's pissed a lot of people off, but I was like, okay, he can have one, even though, again, I know a lot of people are angry with that. I just don't understand how the WBC, who've come under a lot of scrutiny in the last years, I was going to say the last few months, but really and truly it's a few years, how they have done a U-turn by saying, no, it's not a heavyweight title fight. Everyone calm down. It's going to be a special fight. We're going to, create one of our special belts as they always do. And now all of a sudden, no, it's a heavyweight title fight. I'm like, 1 second. What's gone on there? What kind of conversations have been had behind closed doors?
Oh, man. You know what, right? When they announced this fight again, if it was non-title, for me, I'm kind of like, right, look, Usyk has done a lot of good in this sport. He's been the model champion. He's gone to everybody's backyard. He's taken the B side pretty much the majorities of the time, even when he's been unified champion, right? He's gone to place he didn't have to, right? And he's just been like, as you say, have gloves, we'll fight. So can I begrudge him a voluntary? No. I don't begrudge him a voluntary. If he wanted to fight a Riakporhe, a Frank Sanchez, I wouldn't begrudge him that, right? But the fact is, right, he's fighting a kickboxer who, yeah, kickboxing legend, fair enough, but it's a completely different sport, very different sport. And not only that, right, he's fighting a guy who's had one pro fight 12 years ago against a guy who was 0-5, and they're putting the WBC title on the line. Just to put it in context, there are so many fighters out there. Ade Gman be a prime example. They're paying sanction fees to be ranked. They're paying sanction fees for the WBC to rank their fights. They're paying to stay in the rankings. They're having to do year-round VADA. They're having to do all these things. And Verhoeven can come in and just boom, world title shot. I just think that's wrong. I just think that's wrong to the fighters who, again, are paying that, are working their, they're working their butts off to get ranked. And they're wanting to fight purpose for a prestigious title. And Verhoeven could just come in at the WBC or like, do you know what, the hell with it? You can fight for it. That makes a mockery of the rankings. I mean, there have been times where the WBC or other sanctioned bodies have said, look, you want to fight this guy? Well, he's ranked number 14 and you're only allowed to fight guys in the top 10. And they've stood by that, the WBO and IBF, etc. They've said, no, if he's not in the top 10, you can't fight them. And they could be legit guys. They could be a guy coming in off the back of a good win, but just because wherever they're ranked, unlucky, they can't fight for a world title. This is a guy who's fought once, a guy 0-5, and here's his world title shot. I just don't think it's right. And the WBC, what changed between Fury and Ngannou? Because Fury was the WBC champion, they didn't sanction it. But yet, for this one, they're sanctioning it. It's, to me, this just does not make any sense.
Yeah, they've done quite a lot of wild things in the last 12 months. Manny Pacquiao getting a shot against Barrios was wild. Ryan Garcia, I guess, to an extent, getting a shot against Barrios was wild. Bear in mind, he came off a loss and a no contest before that. Keith Thurman getting a shot at Sebastian Fundora is wild. But this is as wild as it gets. And look, I mean, the obvious answer is they're doing it because of sanctioning fees. They want their sanctioning fees, and they're going to get their sanctioning fees. So that's the obvious answer when people ask, why are they doing it? But they don't need to do it. And I'd love to know what the WBA and IBF are doing with this. I'd love to know if Usyk went to them and asked, can it be a unification or can I put all my belts on the line? And I bet they've said no. And I bet the WBC are the only ones that have said, yes, you can. Of course you can. We're going to roll out the red carpet for you, Oleksandr Usyk. But no, there is nothing Mauricio Sulaiman can say to defend this. He normally likes to try and, come to some sort of defense. And he might say what you've said, that he's been a great champion. He's done this for us. He's done that for us. Let him have this. That's what he's going to say. But it's wrong. You're right. There are guys behind that have waited their turn, that want an opportunity to fight for a world title, and you've given it to a kickboxer with no boxing experience, whose only boxing experience really is that he was a sparring partner for Tyson Fury, hence the Peter Fury link up. So it's a bit crazy.
I think it's just awful. I just think it's an awful look. I think Mauricio Sulaiman, as you say there, he'll try and spin it in that way. Oh, but Usyk's been a model champion. He's been this. I don't care. Right? I don't care if he's been a model champion. At the end of the day, right? You have these rules in place for a reason, as do all the sanctioning bodies, right? You are happy to rank these guys who are fighting, consistently paying you sanction fees for a reason, right? It doesn't matter if this guy has sparred the best fighter in the world. It doesn't matter who he sparred. The fact of the matter is he's doing what he's doing in a different sport, and he's jumping the queue. He's jumping the queue. Manny Pacquiao was a great champion. Fair enough. He came back. He shouldn't have had that world title shot, but you gave it to him anyway. You can look at that and say, all right, but it is Manny Pacquiao of all people. He's a legend. They give some of these guys, those legend perks, right? They do. It happens, right? They gave Vitaly Klitschko for years after the fact he retired, could have came back and had a world title shot if he wanted. The WBC do that. But they're former champions, a former kickboxer. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure he went to the IBF and the WBA and they were like, what the hell? Like, why are we going to rank this? Why are we going to sanction a fight where a fighter is not even a fighter in our sport? No, for me, it was just, no, it's just not right. It's just not right. And I think the WBC, if you think about it like this, right, credibility does mean something. The WBC's belt is the most prestigious in the game, right? There's no ifs or buts. It's the most prestigious. But there's only so much your reputation can take a knock before the belt reputation takes a knock. And I think right now we're getting to that stage. I think I think you've got fighters now looking at the WBO and the IBF and thinking, do you know what? If I have their belt, they're going to enforce me as a mandatory if I'm a mandatory. If I am the champion, I have to be, I have to sing by, their hymn sheet, but, they're pretty good. The WBC, I could have no mandatory 1 minute and they'll slap one on me the next. I could miss 2 years of action and, nothing will happen. I could be a contender fighting eliminator after eliminator after eliminator, and I won't get a title shot. Why the hell would I want to fight for their belt? When the WBA, well, sometimes, but the WBO and IBF will just let me, they won't play that game. They'll just be like, you're mandatory, you get your shot. If you don't get your shot, we'll strip them, you'll get your shot. All that, no, WBC's credibility is tanking now at this stage.
I agree with regards to there's only so long that you can take the piss, but I think the WBC are so far a million miles in front of the other belts, a million miles. I speak to fighters all the time, and no fighter ever mentions the other belts to me apart from the WBC. I want to win the WBC. They continually mention the WBC. And I don't know, maybe it's because the president, Mauricio Suleiman, is so out there. Like, you see him at all the events. You don't really see the others. Like if I were to ask you right now, who's the WBO president, would you know?
No, I don't actually. I know Gilberto Mendoza is WBA, and I literally don't know the other two.
There you go. And this is my point. Like, Mauricio Suleiman puts himself out there so much that he's almost, and obviously his father did it before him, but they've almost made that belt so much more prestigious because he is everywhere. He is vocal. And the other guys you don't know, like Gilberto Mendoza, as you correctly said, is the WBA. He could walk past me and I think I would know him. Like, is that Gilberto? But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. And I think that's kind of adds to, I don't know why, but it adds to almost the prestige of the WBC. But you're right, though. They are continually fucking up here. And there has to be a time when it kind of like, honestly, that credit in the bank they've got because all the big names wore their belt has to kind of slow down and begin to thin out a little bit, I think. AJ was going to fight Rico. I think this is now widely out there that AJ was going to fight Rico Verhoeven. He's a big guy. He's 6'5", near 20 stone. It's funny though, because I look at the issues that Ngannou caused Fury, and Ngannou's always liked to box, and I'm like, could Rico cause Usyk any problems whatsoever? And then I shut that down immediately and said no. Sorry to interrupt the video, but this is very important. If you're one of these people that watch the channel and don't hit that subscribe button or forgot to hit that subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. I am trying to get to 200,000 subscribers and I need you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. All right, back to the video.
Could Rico cause Usyk any problems? No. Because Usyk, for one, is a consummate professional. Tyson Fury, listen, I know some people have tried to say, oh no, he wasn't in bad shape when he fought Francis Ngannou. Yeah, no, he was. Like, he actually looked, even though he was heavy in the second Usyk fight, aesthetically, to me, he looked better in that fight, and he fought better in that fight than he did against Francis Ngannou. Tyson Fury obviously thought this is going to be like taking candy from a baby, went in there against Ngannou, and he got a bit of a shock, right? AJ didn't make that mistake. We all saw what happened. Usyk, consummate professional. Like, Usyk is just, Derek Chisora said about him that, and Derek Chisora is a bit eccentric, and he's like, yeah, Usyk's on a different level. The guy's in Dubai on fight week doing 40k cycles in the blistering heat. That's just what he does. So Usyk's going to take this fight very, very serious. Verhoeven, you see, one thing about Ngannou was a big puncher in MMA. Verhoeven only has something like a 27 or 8% knockout ratio in kickboxing. So that says to me that he's not really a big puncher, overall. And obviously there's more ways you can knock someone out if you're allowed to use your legs. So I wouldn't even say he's got a puncher's chance in there against Usyk.
It's interesting. All right, anyway, that takes place in Egypt in May. Obviously, May's becoming a busy month already. All the months seem to be very busy now. March is stacked, April's stacked, as we know, and May's becoming stacked as well. All right, let's talk about a fight card. Now we know the full fight card that's happening in April. I am talking about April 11th, Tyson Fury versus Arslanbek Makhmudov. We're not going to talk about the main event. We're going to talk about the chief support or the co-main event. Conor Benn versus Regis Proograis has been announced. which is just, I mean, this is bad. I'm sorry. Conor Benn, Regis Prograis at 150. At one what? What do you mean 150? This is crazy.
All this talk, I could do 147 pounds. Okay, we'll go ahead and do it. No. All right. Now, Regis Prograis even stated that he wanted this fight at 147 pounds. Conor Benn insisted it at 150. Listen, mate, you're either going to do a 147 or you're not going to do it. There's no in between. All this 150, catch weight and this, that, and the other. Now, if you want to fight at 15, if you want to fight at 147, if you want to be a world champion at 147, then do 147. That's what you got to be doing. And here's the thing, right? Regis Prograis, he's a career 140 pounder. He was never even that big at 140 pounds. He was a decent size 140. He wasn't huge. And he's moving up now to basically, 154 pounds, basically, because that's technically what this fight is contracted for. I just think it's awful. And this is a guy who was hurt by Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz, for those who don't know, was a light punching featherweight because he won his world title at featherweight. And that guy, Jojo Diaz, was hurting Regis Prograis. What do you think Conor Benn's going to do? I don't like this fight. Like, if Conor Benn was coming back and it was just a miscellaneous fight, say with Eddie Hearn, it was just a miscellaneous, get me a run out, we'll do it at 147, I wouldn't mind it as such. But this guy is coming in saying he wants world title fights. He signed a $15 million deal with Zuffa Box. He's getting paid 15 million quid for this fight. Come on, at the very least, right? If you're going to get that type of fight, give me something. Show me something, not this. Please.
Yeah, look, it's a surprise for everyone. And I'm with you on nearly all of that, to be honest with you. Regis Prograis is, and it always has been, a small 140 pounder. And I was watching Regis's interview with Gareth A. Davis and Johnny Nelson, and he was telling them, look, I tried to get this fight at 148 when they said 150. I was like, okay, what about 149? And they were like, no, 150. I'm like, this is crazy. If it was, I'll be honest with you, I'm not mad at Conor for doing it at 150. If it was another welterweight. If it was another welterweight, I'd be like, okay, cool. Everyone seems to be doing these stupid catchweight things, like Conor. I just don't like the idea of grabbing a 140 guy and then putting him in an uncomfortable position to fight. I mean, Conor got critiqued a lot for the Eubank hydration cap and the rehydration cap. And now you're doing another weight stipulation with a smaller guy. It's kind of weird. Like, pick a weight, dude.
Well,
if you're going to fight at one weight, fight at that weight. Don't have all these little bits and bobs in between. I just don't like it. It looks a bit messy.
And don't act like what you're doing is something special. Because Conor Benn, when he beat Chris Eubank Jr., man, he had a zombie in front of him. And Conor Benn was acting like he just won undisputed. If you're going to be doing all these stipulations, right, at the very least, don't act like it's an achievement. I'm a gamer as such. I'm not a big gamer these days. But if I'm playing someone like in a one-on-one and I have cheat codes and he doesn't, I'm not going to brag about beating them because it's like I've got an advantage. So, what's there to brag about? So Conor Benn, because he's been saying before, I'm going to win a world title, I'm going to do all this at welterweight, then just do it. Enough of all this, meet you in the middle, meet you halfway. And like that, say he had fought a Paddy Donovan or someone like that, someone at that level where, they're a known commodity. They might not be world level. They might be fringe. They might be European, something like that. But they're a solid welterweight. If you'd have fought someone like that, and brought them to 150 or something like that, yeah, fine. Like, I might not agree with it necessarily, but fine, right? You're both welterweights, you're meeting in the middle, do what you got to do. But again, you're talking about a small, very small 140 pounder. Devin Haney moved up from 135 to fight this guy, and he looked about 2 weight divisions bigger. So that puts it all in context. So I don't like this from Conor Benn. I'm sick of all this, he has to do this rehydration, but then I don't, and this, that. Just do what? These are the rules, just follow them.
When you say you don't like it from Conor Benn specifically, and you've aimed it at him, do you think it's Conor Benn making these decisions?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'll tell you why I think it's Conor Benn making these decisions. Because do you remember in the build-up to the Crawford-Canelo fight, they were interviewing fighters in the run-up. I think it was on one of the Netflix little trailers. And they were interviewing the likes of, AJ and people like that. And they were saying, this is a big fight. This is amazing. And Conor Benn turned around and said, I just can't believe Terence Crawford isn't looking for a catchweight or rehydration clause. And I was like, well, that tells me everything it needs to be known. Like, you're looking for these advantages and you can't understand why Crawford does it. But Crawford does it because he believes in his ability. That tells me you don't fully believe in your own ability. You feel like you need these advantages. Otherwise, it's not a level playing field.
Yeah, I think he doesn't fully believe he can make 147 yet, having had his last 2 fights at 160 and the 2 fights before that at 154. I think he's naturally grown to a size where really and truly
Mm-hmm.
Conor Benn should be fine at 154. And I think he wants to see how he
Mm-hmm.
looks at 150 and feels at 150. And then, depending upon how the welterweight landscape is when he destroys Proograis, as he should, and then he'll try and get down to 147. He really should not be fine at welterweight. If you've not fought in a
No.
division for 3.5 years and you're now approaching 30, you shouldn't be in that division anymore. And I think that's maybe the biggest issue here. But I think the big issue is getting Regis Proograis, who's 37, who hasn't been Regis Proograis really since he fought Josh Taylor. That was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my biggest gripe with it. All right, what about the rest of the undercard? It's out there now. Everyone's seen it. What's your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Score it out of 10.
8.5.
Oh, wow, that's high.
8.5. I like it. Yeah, out of 10. I like this undercard. I think there's some intrigue. There's some fights that kind of got me, and I was like, huh? All right. Like Fraser Clark Justice Huni is a bit random, but look, I don't hate the fight. I think it could catch fire. I do worry because they're both not naturally aggressive, so it could be, you know, God knows what might happen. But they're two big punching guys. I think that could be good. I like Riakporhe TKV. I think we're going to see a knockout in that fight. Conor Benn, look, I'll take that. But even on the prelims, and bear in mind, there's 10 fights on this card. There's a lot of fights. You've got the likes of Felix Cash on there as well. But Troy Williamson versus, I forget the guy's name now, Simon Zuckerberg, I think his name is, undefeated German kid, 28-0. That could be a good fight. Like, Troy Williamson is never in dull fights. So for me, this undercard, yeah, it's a solid 8.5. Seriously, I give it that.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. Again, everyone's reaction nowadays, just because everyone's used to these WrestleMania cards. I don't know why everyone's so angry. It's on Netflix. We've all got Netflix, so it's not like it's pay-per-view. So if it was a pay-per-view fight card, then I could understand okay, why am I paying 30 quid for this? Well, you're not. You're not really. All you have to do really is just go onto your app and it's there. So I'm not mad at it at all. And I like heavyweights. I've always said every card should have heavyweight fights because it produces carnage. Yeah. And I know you said that Fraser Clark maybe doesn't and Justice Huni don't. Well, Fraser Clark and Justice Huni have just been in wars. Justice Huni was in a war with Fabio Wardley, and Fraser Clark was in a war with TKV. So if they fight like they did in those fights, then someone's in trouble. So look, I'm with you. It's a solid 8 for me. I could have gone 8.5. It's a solid 8. I'm not mad at this at all.
No. And as you say, and you know me, I absolutely love the heavyweight division. So when I see heavyweights on a card, I'm just like, yes, I love it. And I think the promoters know that as well. Remember Frank's debut on DAZN last year? He went heavyweight heavy on that card. He was like, right, this is how I'm going to start on DAZN. I'm going heavyweight heavy. So I like it. And if you think about it like this, right, Fury Usyk 2, that undercard was arguably worse than this. And that was on pay-per-view because a lot of the fighters pulled out. It was meant to have Israel Madrimov versus Sergei Bohachuk. We ended up having Madrimov. Was it Madrimov or Bohachuk? I think it was Bohachuk versus Ishmael Davis. And then we had a Tillman McKean as co-main event. So, like, when I look at this, I'm like, well, there's competitive fights. There's Conor Benn, all right, might not be the most competitive. But then you got TKV. TKV is on a good run of form. Riakporhe is a little bit unknown at heavyweight. I mean, Tommy Welsh didn't really tell us anything. And then, as I said, Justice Huni versus Fraser Clark. I mean, yeah, both their last fights were entertaining. They both lost, but they were fun. You couldn't take your eyes off them. So for me, this is a better undercard than Fury Usyk too, certainly. So I don't understand why anyone would complain. You're seeing fighters,
because we're complainers. That's why we're complaining, because naturally we're complainers. That's what it is. Unless someone somehow digs up Muhammad Ali and gets him in the ring with Mike Tyson, no one's going to be happy. One fight that I think people will enjoy this weekend that's going under the radar, severely under the radar, is Opetaia versus Brandon Glandon. That happens this weekend on Zuffa. I almost feel like it's not quite got the push. Like, I have sat with both separately. I've done face-offs with Opetaia. I've done a face-off with Brandon Glandon. How there's not been a face-off, I don't know if Zuffa do this type of thing, right? I don't know if they do face-offs, but there should have been, because both of these guys are so menacing. I feel like it just needs a bit of a push, this one. It's at the Apex as well, which doesn't help, in front of a couple of hundred people. But it's a big fight, and it's for the Zuffa Cruiserweight title.
Oh, wow. The prestigious Zuffa boxing title, yes. Now, I will consider Opetaia the IBF champion rather than the Zuffa champion, in all fairness. But I do think this fight has gone criminally under the radar. Do you know what? It was only when we were having a chat offline before we start recording, you were saying, right, these are the subjects. And I was like, Opetaia. I was like, oh, crap, yeah, that is this weekend. I've even forgotten about it. And Jay Opetaia is one of my favorite fighters to watch. So that kind of says it all. It's his debut with Zuffa. He's in the Apex, which I agree. It gives very much the COVID behind closed doors kind of vibes, which I don't really like. I just don't find the same atmosphere there. And this fight, Brandon Glandon is menacing. Like Brandon
Yeah.
Glandon ran CBS very close last year. He beat the brakes off Marcus Brown over in Nigeria. You were covering that fight as well. So this is not a gimme fight. You know, we've been talking about wanting to see Jay Opetaia step up. People, this is a step up. Make no
Yeah.
mistake about it. Brandon Glandon is a step up, a big step up at that.
Yeah. I do wonder. Look, I think Jai will win. I do think he's going to be tested, but I do think he wins. I do wonder what belt goes around his waist first. Like, will Dana White get in the ring and try and put the Zuffa belt around his waist, or is it the IBF, or is it the Ring Magazine belt? Like, I wonder which one he kind of holds aloft first, which is going to be interesting. But I think I think it is a good fight. And now, if you're Jai, I guess he's kind of based quite a lot in America. Benavidez was ringside. Benavidez says he wants to fight you. Potentially, Jai must have one eyes on that Zerdo and Benavidez matchup, thinking, okay, finally, if I'm in America, I get the chance to fight one of those guys if I win.
Well, if you think about it like this, right? Jay Opetaia, when he signed with Zuffa, it kind of went against the Zuffa boxing memo because Jay Opetaia was saying, my dream is to be undisputed. And I'm telling you now, he did not mean undisputed as Zuffa boxing champion. He meant, I want to be undisputed as in, I want to fight the winner of Dave Benavidez versus Gilberto Ramirez, which I'm edging towards Benavidez in that fight. And I think that he's looking to collect these belts. I don't think for a second he's going to be content with the Zuffa boxing title. He is looking to collect. And now he's based himself in America. Because bear in mind, as you say, before, yeah, he had a couple of fights in Riyadh, but he was mainly just stuck in Australia, just headlining the bills over there against, you know, again, miscellaneous opponents. Now, albeit in the Apex, he's making his debut in America. And I think that the American audience are going to take the Jai Opetaia like a fish takes the water because he's menacing, he's mean, he's all action, and he produces some of the most savage knockouts you'll ever see. It's going to be, honestly, I think it's a match made in heaven. I really do, and I hope this pushes him on to get these big fights.
Agreed. I can't wait for it. Again, I think that's Sunday on Zuffa. I don't think it's Saturday. I think it's Sunday.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about a fight that might happen in the kind of super middleweight division. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Edgar Berlanga. I actually spoke to Chris Mannix about this. We exchanged messages because Chris Mannix mentioned it on the broadcast on Saturday. And I heard him say 164. And I was like, okay, maybe he made a mistake. So I messaged him and said, look, did you mean 164? And he said, yeah, that according to him, according to his sources, Eubank said if this fight were to happen, that it has to happen at 164 pounds. Why?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Chris Eubank Jr. was drained at 160 pounds and he wasn't happy about having rehydration clauses and all this. So why it's got 4 pounds isn't going to make that big of a difference. You need to fight at 168 pounds. You do realize that this guy was having health issues, and I think that was largely because of him having to make the weight. It's only 4 pounds. It's not a crazy amount. And that's and don't do what Conor Benn did to you. Because Edgar Berlanga is an absolute monster at 168 pounds. He is huge. You're going to drain Edgar Berlanga down and basically do what Conor Benn did to you. Don't do that. Don't do that. And personally, for me, I would rather just Chris Eubank just walk away because I think the punch resistance is gone. His health, I'm worried about the health. And someone like Berlanga, yeah, he's coming on the back of a knockout defeat, but Berlanga is a serious operator. He's a serious puncher. I think he could cause Chris Eubank Jr. serious problems. If he thought Conor Benn hit hard, oh boy, that's nothing compared to what this guy can produce.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's light in day. I mean, Conor Benn was a blown up welterweight 154 pounder. Edgar Berlanga's a man that clearly walks way above 200 pounds and gets down to 168. But look, again, there are weight classes for a reason. I mentioned this with Shakur Stevenson saying he'll fight Ryan Garcia at 144. I said that's not a weight class. Like, why are we making up these weight classes? Let's just, if you're going to fight a super middle, fight a super middle. Don't try and drain someone. Like Edgar Berlanga obviously isn't as big as Chris Eubank Jr. over here. Edgar Berlanga's a big name. Like the idea of trying to sort of, you're not calling over a scrub. You're calling over someone that sold out the venue that I did when it was when in Queens, Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shearer. So I don't think you can play these games with Berlanga.
No. And he will definitely be even though they're both coming on the back of a defeat, he will definitely be going to America. He'll be very much the B side. and it will be, they'll almost see this fight, Team Berlanga, as like the perfect comeback fight. Because they'll look at how Chris Eubank Jr. looked, not even just in the rematch, in both Conor Benn fights. He didn't look amazing in the first fight. He was just that little bit more fresher then. And they'll look at that and think, all right, I'm taking candy for my baby here. I'm going in there against the guy who's been competing at 160. He hasn't looked good. He's looked absolutely awful, to say the least. And he's coming up to my weight where I'm cutting. God knows how he makes the weight because he's huge. The man's like a heavyweight in there when he's in the ring. And I can knock guys out. This guy got dropped by a blown up welterweight. Man, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to knock this guy out in a round or two. That's exactly what he's going to be thinking. And he'll go in there with no fears. And we won't even think about what happened last time around. He'll go in there, bags of confidence. And yeah, it'll be, I think it'll be Chris Eubank Jr.'s worst nightmare, man.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think it happens. It'll be interesting to know what angle Chris takes, because if you're not going to fight a Berlanga who's coming off a knockout defeat, I mean, there are some scary unknown names in the 168-pound division that won't offer you the rewards that a Berlanga fight will, but could knock your block off. So I have no idea which way he's going. Surely he's not just sitting down hoping he gets a call from Canelo. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. All right, Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather obviously scheduled to fight Manny Pacquiao in September. Now there's a lot of talk about Floyd Mayweather fighting some guy called Mike Zanbib, I think Zambi or Zambis in Greece. There's still talk of Floyd Mayweather versus Mike Tyson in Congo, April 25th. Mayweather's obviously short of a couple of quid here. Like, and when I heard all this stuff about Mayweather being broke, I was like, he's not broke. Broke's very relative, but maybe he is struggling financially because all of a sudden Mayweather's having potentially 3 fights in 6 months.
Well, maybe when you say struggling financially, look, I'm sure Mayweather is doing better than probably me and you and probably other people all put into one. But Floyd Mayweather has lived a very extravagant lifestyle. It's fair to say. Money Mayweather, he likes to flash the money. He likes to spend the money, private jets, all this, that. And maybe he's run into a bit of struggle that maybe won't cripple him, and it'll probably still live him very well off. But the lifestyle he's accustomed to living, the extravagant lifestyle, maybe he's thinking, oh, this might end soon. Things are not going well, because he's not been making the same amount of money since he left boxing. He just hasn't, right? So he's probably thinking, right, I can cash in on my name, I can get these exhibitions, and ultimately the Manny Pacquiao fight will pay him an absolutely astronomical amount of money. And maybe it's a case of having to do this in order to maintain the lifestyle he's used to living. The saying, live beyond your means. Maybe he's just been doing that and is now realizing, oh, if I want to keep living the way I am living, I need to be, getting this income in a little bit more. So I don't know if it's going to be, I wouldn't imagine he's broke or anything like that. It's not like he's going to be like a Riddick Bowe, who's just, he's not got really anything. He's having to rely on appearances and stuff like that. I don't think it's that bad. But I think for the lifestyle he's accustomed to living, yeah, I think it could be bad. And the fact that he's coming back for a professional fight, because Mayweather, that is everything to Floyd Mayweather. If he's risking the at this stage in his career, 49 years old he'll be when he steps in with Manny Pacquiao, something's definitely up there. It's not just the exhibitions are one thing, but risking that because Pacquiao should be world champion right now.
I wouldn't be surprised if someone at Netflix has a conversation with him. Because if I'm the amount of money that he's going to be making from fighting Mike Tyson and fighting this guy in Greece it won't get anywhere to the amount of money that he supposedly will make against Manny Pacquiao. And if I'm 49 and I haven't stepped into the ring for a long time, it has been a long time since Floyd even had an exhibition fight. I mean, the risk of injury is high. Risk of anything. Like Floyd isn't one that gets cut or anything, but you just don't know as you get older, right? Why jeopardize or why even risk it when you potentially could be making 30, 40 million against Manny Pacquiao? Like you can't be that broke that you would jeopardize or potentially jeopardize one of the biggest fights financially this year. I just find it quite silly to do when anything could happen in those 2 fights.
That's actually the opposite to what I was thinking, believe it or not. It actually, when I saw the announcement that he could be potentially having an exhibition with Mike Tyson and then another one in June against this guy, I was thinking, do you know what? That's probably to be acclimatized in that fighting environment, because he hasn't fought in that professional ring for nearly a decade. And sparring is one thing, being gym ready is one thing, but actually being under the bright lights, having a referee officiate it, having the media light shining down on you, having the commentators commentate on it, that's different. Remember Teddy Atlas used to do that to some of his fighters. He'd get judges in to like judge the spar and stuff like that to get them familiar with being in that fighting environment. And I think that could be what Floyd's doing. My biggest concern is his hands, because he's always had brittle hands. So if he's going in there and, even exhibitions, even sparring, that would be my biggest concern. Not him necessarily getting cut or anything like that. I'd be thinking, watch those hands. You don't want anything too bad to happen to them. But it doesn't surprise me at all that he's doing these exhibitions, because I'm thinking he wants to give himself the best chance of beating Manny Pacquiao. He doesn't want to arrive on fight night after 9 years out of the ring and have to acclimatize not just to the ring rust, but also to the environment. A sparring session, you could spar, 100 rounds in camp. All right, that's all well and good. You're in a gym. You're in a gym environment with no referee, no judges, no media, no anything. It's very different on fight night.
Dude, you're talking about Floyd Mayweather here. You're not talking about a 20-fight novice. You're talking about Floyd Money Mayweather, who's done more bright light ring walks than any fighter in human history.
I'm also talking about a 49-year-old, nearly decade inactive Floyd Mayweather, and as great. And I love Floyd Mayweather.
When you say nearly decade inactive, what do you mean nearly decade inactive? Because he has had exhibition fights.
When's the last time he had one? Was it Logan Paul?
No, he did one against Deji, which I covered, which was about 4 years ago, and he did one again. Yeah, and he did one in the O2 Arena.
Okay, but still, it's a long time ago. It's a long time ago, and again, you want to be acclimatized. You want to be familiar, right? You want to be familiar with this environment, these settings. And again, father time, man. It's under Floyd Mayweather, as great as he is. Bernard Hopkins, right? Just this right. Bernard Hopkins, the alien, right, was still fighting at a good level at the age of 50, but he lost to a Joe Smith Jr. Mate, I love Joe Smith Jr., overachiever. A prime Bernard Hopkins wouldn't have even been competitive with Joe Smith Jr. Man got knocked out of the ring. And I know Manny Pacquiao was old too, but don't knock father time.
No. Yeah, that's all well and good, but he's fighting Mike Tyson. So I'd understand if it was an exhibition against someone who could actually move. He's fighting someone who I'm convinced I move better than. So you've more chance of fighting me. You're going to get more energy in that ring fighting Ade Oladipo than you are fighting, especially if it's the Mike Tyson I saw against Jake Paul. And by the way, that was 2 years ago. So Mike Tyson's age, like, I don't see what you get out of Mike Tyson. I understand. One thing I will agree with, I understand the idea of the bright lights. I get all that. But the brittle hand thing, I would save my hands for Manny Pacquiao because it's the biggest fight I'm going to have ever again in my life, than risk the brittle hands or injury against an unknown Greek guy and a 60-something-year-old Mike Tyson.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly with that. I think it's needed. I think he needs these runarounds. Listen, Floyd is not silly. He's not going to throw an unnecessary shot. He's not going to go in there and look to land a big body shot. No, if I throw this, there's a chance I catch an elbow. He is going to take like the minimal amount of risks. And against Mike Tyson, I mean, it's just the bright lights. I mean, as you say, like you could get like the most immobile 40-year-old. He still probably moves better than Mike Tyson. So, that's just a runaround. That's just the cash grab and all that. But again, it's time in the ring. It's under the bright lights. It's under scrutiny. That's what he needs. And I don't think he will take even the slightest risk. I think they'll be the most dull, boring exhibitions you'll ever see. And then we'll see the real Floyd, or what's left of him, against Manny Pacquiao in September.
Yeah, okay. Let's agree to disagree on whether or not it's a good idea for Floyd to have these exhibition fights before he fights Manny Pacquiao. All right, Virgil Ortiz versus Boots Ennis. Eddie Hearn has said, and he said this today being Monday evening when we're recording this, guys, that the next few days are crucial as to whether or not this fight could happen or not. Gut feeling, do we see it or not? Or do we see it next or not? Sorry.
No, we see it next. I think good feeling is telling me, yes, we will see this fight. I think it's too big for it not to happen. We talk about world titles and stuff like that, right? This is seen as the biggest fight in the 154-pound division. Neither guy's a world champion. That says it all. Like, that sums up how big this fight actually is. I think that egos have to be put aside. I think that everything that's transpired, everything that's gone on, it's not helped anybody. And I think, to be honest with you, I think with the way Dana White come into this sport, I think now more so than ever, less divide, more unity between the promoters. Put this big fight on. Everyone wants to see it. And truth be told, like, I think it will happen. I really do. I was back and forth, would it, won't it? I think right now it will. And I think if there's an ultimatum, if there's a deadline, I think all parties are going to come and say, right, let's just do this. Let's get it over the line. Let's show that it doesn't have to be Zuffa Box. It doesn't have to be Dana White. It doesn't have to be Netflix. We can do this. The two arguably biggest promoters in the US, we can do it. And I think they will.
My only sort of reservation is the carrot being dangled in front of Ortiz's face, which is Xander Zayas. Whereas Boots doesn't really have a big plan B, Virgil does. And the reason it's a big plan B for Virgil, firstly, it's Puerto Rican versus Mexican, and those fights are the biggest fights or have been in the history of America. They're massive fights, or at least in the last 25 years. But also, Virgil's never been a world champion. And I know everyone's shitting on belts right now, but Virgil hasn't been a world champion, and here's his chance to be a world champion. And Xander Zayas has 2 belts. So it's not just a case of being a world champion and it's 1 belt. You're chasing a guy that now has 2. So I think there's a good chance Virgil might look at Xander Zayas and think, we can do this one if we can't make the Boots fight. And that's a big fight in MSG. MSG, I think, would sell out for Xander Zayas versus Virgil Ortiz.
Wow, you've shocked me there. And you're right, actually. I didn't think of that. Yeah, Virgil Ortiz. God, that's crazy. For someone as talented as him to never be a world champion, you're actually right. That's crazy. And I'm sure that probably does play on his mind because Virgil Ortiz, man, he is one of the most talented fighters in the sport of boxing. It's crazy how good he is. That is a bit of a worry because, yeah, that's a big fight. It would sell out MSG. Xander Zayas is phenomenally talented as well. So you're talking about 2 equally talented fighters. I think Virgil would win, though, personally, just me. So, yeah, there is that option there. But I think that there's been that rivalry. So as long as I can remember, since Virgil was doing his thing at 147, there's always been, yeah, but there's Boots Ennis there. There's still Boots Ennis. There's Virgil Ortiz, Boots Ennis. I think there's just that rivalry there. Don't underestimate the rivalry. I think when a rivalry is like that, when people have been linked for so long in terms of their names, I think that world titles maybe even take a backward step. I think that the pride of getting the better of that rivalry, I think that's going to get to Virgil. And I think we will get this fight. I think Oscar will say, let's do it. I think Virgil will. I think Team Boots will. I think that all parties will come together and agree this week, let's do it. And I think we do see this fight. And I don't think we just see it this year. I think we see it next.
I think it's crazy to think that Virgil could have beaten Boychuk, Majimov, and Boots Ennis and still not have a title.
That's actually mental. That is actually mental when you think about it. The greatest run you could have that doesn't culminate in a world title, if you think about it like that. That actually probably would be the best run you could have in boxing that doesn't culminate in a world title.
Yeah.
That
and
really
sorry,
is.
I forgot Erickson Lubin in there as well.
Lubin was a good fighter, still is. Yeah. Still is a good fighter, still is decent. Only lost, I think, to Charlo and Fundora prior to that. So that run is insanity. And he still wouldn't be a world champion. That would be... He will be. Sooner or later, he will be. But goddamn, that's a crazy run. If he beat... Wow. That's like the ultimate... That could put you... Just think about it like this, right? That actual run could probably put you... In fact, it would put you in the pound-for-pound top 10, and you still wouldn't be a world champion. That's crazy.
It's fucking insane.
That actually would, because that run would put you in it. Because even Dubois with his run, he ended up becoming champion.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's actually insane to think he could do that and not be a world champion. Insane. All right, we'll end on this one. We'll end on the fights on the weekend. Let's start where I was very quickly. I was in Derby. Never been there before for a boxing event. Don't think I've ever been to Derby actually for anything, but was there. Was at the Valent Arena, or the Valent Live, it's called, for Owen Cooper versus this unknown boogeyman called Konstantin Usyk, who's born in Moldova but now lives in Plymouth. Has been in the UK for about 7 years. Has been fighting on these small shows, I think it's fair to call them, for top tier, and has now arrived. He's now the British, Commonwealth, and WBO European champion. I don't know if you watched the fight or caught up with it, G-Man, but it's pretty good. It's pretty handy.
He's very handy. I knew I recognized the name going into this fight, and he fights on those top tier shows that are also on the zone. I think it's a guy's named Johnny Clark. Is he the promoter who does them? He does a lot of them in the York Hall and Brentwood Centre. And honestly, and I was familiar with Owen Cooper as well, but man, Konstantin, right, that boy has some skill. The movement, the angles, and even more impressive was, I think he said to Dev Sani after, that his hand was basically mashed up, broken. Well, he didn't fight like someone who you could tell. I mean, it was really impressive. And it had me thinking, I've seen some of the top tier shows, the GBM shows. And on those shows, you do see some phenomenal talents that you just wish they got an opportunity against with some of these big promoters. And I think Konstantin, and it's different. Plymouth, you don't see fighters based down in the southwest of England. You don't see it at all, really. And there might be something to it. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I mean, there's a lot of skill there. Really good stuff.
Yeah, you don't see fighters from Plymouth, and you certainly don't really see fighters from Derby, really either. So it's almost like two areas
No.
where you don't see fighters from. We staged a fight, and yeah, I'm with you. It's good to see a fighter kind of developing in those small shows, and then they get a chance under the bright lights, and there you go. I will say what Johnny Clark does though is such a good job, because although they're small shows, I've actually watched them, and they look like big shows. So when a fighter kind of comes through, they look at the bright lights and they're not. It doesn't scare them, because this is kind of what they're used to on Johnny Clark's top tier shows or the GBM shows, as you say. So I don't think it's difficult to come through those shows and then do well on a Matchroom or Queensborough show, because ultimately those shows feel like big shows anyway.
They do indeed. And one thing I actually really like about the top tier shows is that Johnny Clark tends to put them on a Sunday. Now, I really enjoy that because it's different. You've got the small hall show. Yeah, it's in the York Hall, or it's in the Brentwood Centre in Essex, but it's on a Sunday. I watched many of them. I think there was one I think last summer. And honestly, there wasn't one fight on there that wasn't fun. I remember one of his prospects, he won't be happy probably to remember this, but I remember one of his prospects got knocked out on it. But just every fight, there was just really good matchmaking, really good flow. There was no journeyman just looking to survive for 4 or 5 rounds. It was just flowing fights. So I cannot big Johnny Clark and top tier up enough. They have some great fighters on that stable, Konstantin being one of them. So the more eyes we get on these small hall, I mean, you've said it before on here that there is so many good small hall promoters out there. Yeah. They just don't get enough exposure. And man, Johnny Clark is doing phenomenal work. He really is. Shout out to him every time if he's watching.
Indeed. All right, let's end it by talking about the great Emmanuel Navarrete, who destroyed Sugar Nunes over the weekend in what was supposed to be a 50-50 war, which ended up just being a one-sided beatdown. I mean, you could have given every single round to Navarrete, and eventually it was waved off. But yeah, he looked menacing, Navarrete. He almost looked back to his old school best, and all of a sudden I wouldn't say he's back, because he never went anywhere, but if you know what I mean, he's now once again maybe the top dog in that division. I know Shaki Foster's there and others, but he's that guy now who you have to get through if you want to be in big fights, and he's going to be very, very difficult to get through.
He is, and Navarrete is a strange one for me, because there's times he's looked like, when I say world level, you said the great, and there's no other word you can say that about him. He's a Mexican legend at this point. But he has just looked so good at times. But then there's other times with Navarrete. This is what's frustrating, where you looked at him and you're like, huh? And you ask the question, like, is he on the decline? Because he just looks so pedestrian at times. And you're just like, what's wrong? And you're getting silly knockdowns scored against him. And you're like, what's going on? But then in the next fight, he just flipped the switch. And you're like, pound for pound. But you just don't know which one you're going to get. And going into this fight, like, I like Sugar Nunes. I rate him very, very highly. And I was thinking, yeah, this is his coming out party, because I was under the impression that it wasn't, he's either blowing hot or cold. I was under the impression with Navarrete that he was a bit over the hill and past it. Nope. What do I know? Because that was vintage. That was like he was when he fought the guys like Oscar Valdez and Isaac Dogbe, where he just looked in another league altogether. That was beautiful stuff from Navarrete. He really is a legend of Mexican boxing. There's no ifs or buts about it.
100%, no ifs and buts. Eddie will be upset because obviously Sugar Nunes was his guy. And I think he already started selling the dreams to Sugar, like, you're going to fight this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, once you beat Navarrete. And unfortunately, and you're right, sometimes Navarrete can look a bit off. Sometimes he can look very, very good. And on Saturday, he looked very, very good. And Sugar Nunes just ran into the best Navarrete. And there's no shame in that loss. It's just how he builds from there, which I'm sure he will, because Sugar Nunes is a good fighter who, let's not forget, won his belt away from home as well. Remember, that's Cache's belt. It's a belt that's kind of been it's gone from a lot of people to Joe Cordina, Kakache, to Sugar Nunes. Now Navarrete's got it. All that's happened in about a year and a half. 4 people have had that belt, which is kind of crazy. All right, G-Man, there you go. I think the next big one I will be doing will be in Dublin, but there are some issues with it because obviously Jazza Dickens lives in Dubai.
Yeah.
And now there's a bit of an issue about whether or not Jazza Dickens is going to be able to fly out of Dubai. So I guess everyone's keeping their fingers crossed. Mark Chamberlain's off the card. It was supposed to be him versus Pierce O'Leary. Maxie Hughes has come in, which I think is a great replacement. Maxie Hughes always in shape. But we need to see Jazza versus Kakache. We need to see this fight, and hopefully it still stays on the card.
Oh, I'm praying that all the issues that are going on in that part of the world, they don't escalate. I'm praying that everything is okay over there, and that we get Jazza Dickens. And just, you mentioned it before you finished speaking to Dublin. Who said this year is her last year and she wants one last fight in Dublin? The legend, the great Katie Taylor. So you could be getting a couple of dates in Dublin this year.
Yeah, I'm just a bit miffed as to who she fights. I almost feel like we've wasted one of the Serrano fights, because that's for me would have been it. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Sandy Ryan now. There's talk obviously about Chantel Cameron because they're one apiece. Maybe she doesn't need to fight someone of note. Maybe she just needs to have a fight, and everyone's going to turn up as the kind of the farewell tour. But I am a bit like shaking my head as to who, or scratching my head, apologies, as to who she actually gets in the ring with at Croke Park, because I mean, you know this more than me. It's an 85,000 seater stadium. And she can probably fill it, but it'd be nice to have a dance partner.
She can fill it, but I think it'll be in the Aviva. I don't think it'll be in Croke Park. I think she's even alluded to the fact that they've tried it. It's not the easiest to get, clearance in, but the Aviva is still really good, and she'll fill the Aviva. That's about 40,000-50,000. But You're right. I have no idea who she's going to fight either. I'm just thinking, who would you? It's got to be Chantel or Sandy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. All right, there you go, G-Man. A nice hour of boxing. We've tried to cover as much as possible. We've disagreed, we've agreed, we've shaken hands, we've fought, we've argued, we've done what we've always done, and we've got the show done. So thank you as always to everyone that has watched this. Thank you as always to my main man, G-Man. We've got some news to tell you guys. If you're still watching this now, then you are really hardcore. But me and G-Man, looks like we could be taking what we do national. And you guys will know about that very, very soon. Look at the laugh on him. Jesus, he's excited about this, isn't he?
I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited to tell people. But yes, we could be very much doing that.
Yeah. It could be happening, and hopefully sooner rather. In fact, it is happening, but we can't tell you yet. But it is most certainly happening, but we can't tell you yet. But you'll find out in the next maybe week or so. So look out for that. But yeah, thank you as always. Again, if you are here, please subscribe to my channel, to G-Man's channel. The link is in the description. My football channel is in the description as well. And we'll see you next week.